a sheet from that first Tattoo City. That was from, I painted that in '78, and that was definitely, although it was designs of mine that I'd drawn up here at my private shop of like the, the birds and all that stuff. It was in that style, and the ever popular like the unicorn and then the Pegasus and all that stuff. Those were total, classic kitsch popular designs in the '70s. And then that's contrasted with this. This is flash from a guy named Chris Nelson that used to tattoo on Market Street in the early '50s, and he was a Scandinavian sailor that was a tattooer. And that sheet was painted probably like in 1952, so that thing's like 50 years old. Classic flash from that era. Designs that had been originated probably in the 1920s. This is a sheet from Long Beach from Burt Grimm's. This is another thing with Chris Nelson's. This is a sheet I painted from my first shop that I opened in Canada. That was painted in '68. This is from my shop in Sailortown in San Diego in '71. And this went through a fire when Tattoo City burned. We didn't lose everything, but we had this enormous amount of water and smoke damage. And we had all the sheets covered. We'd cover all these things with this contact paper because about every 2 months you'd have to go out and scrub down with Comet all the flash because the nicotine would be so thick on all the flash from the sailors in there on payday. You'd have like 50 guys in your shop smoking. This was other this is just stuff arranged. This is stuff from the 1920s, Owen Jensen. Those are actually photocopies. The paintings by Tom Woodruff, a friend of mine, who's a painter and who has a lot of, he's pretty much covered with tattoos in New York of the old Rock of Ages theme. And there's just other odds and ends of kind of flash. I mean, this place for me is just sort of a showcase of like my personal history and people that influenced me and taught me, and we do a little bit of stuff off the walls here, but it's more just kind of for ambience. Yeah, once in a while people come in and they'll pick out one of these things, so it's definitely doable. In fact, I wish people would get more of this stuff because they make great tattoos.
Yeah.
And there's so much interest now in retro kind of design. People have rediscovered, tattooing's in this total postmodern phase now where everybody's recycling all these things from not different cultures and then from within tattooing's history. So you have people getting like verbatim tattoos that look like 1943, and it's cool. Whatever. I just think it's great that it's all possible now. But we don't do too much stuff off the walls. Once in a while, somebody will come in and say, "Well, I want to design." They want you to draw up something like this, like a hula girl or something. You say, "Well, look, just here's one, and it's perfect. It's codified. Just get it like that." So that's pretty neat. Those geisha girl over in the corner, that's a big drawing of Sailor Jerry's. Those were both back pieces that he put on in the '60s, 64 or something. Another thing next to it is a photo of a huge painting that my teacher, Mr. Kuranuma in Tokyo, Horiyoshi II, did. That's in a big temple in Tokyo. Some tattooers would go off and do kind of artwork for themselves, apart from the flash that they would draw, and that's starting to be happening more now. And then these things are mainly, just drawings. That was like a big chest and an upper arm and down the back of the arm dragon. That was a sleeve of just wind and lightning and maple leaves. I did on a woman who tattoos down in New Mexico. It's like a whole sleeve thing. These are just single pieces. I just kind of tack up the stuff that I like and mix things up with that.
Who else was doing flash back then? I know he's one of the ones everybody quotes.
All tattooers used to paint hand-painted flash. Almost all the shops had, virtually every shop had hand-painted flash in it. Now, sometimes it wasn't painted by the guy that owned the shop, and you have a terrible tradition of you see this really cool flash and some guy's name, and the guy was a total moron. You thought he couldn't paint like this, and then you realize that he blacked out the name of the guy that originally painted it. So all the stuff was passed on. That's how I got a lot of this old stuff. I bought it from old tattooers, and they had no use for it. They were kind of like, "Oh, these designs are out of date," and they didn't really dig it as great tattoo art, But Jerry was really, really prolific. He painted tons of stuff, and because I published some books of it, people kind of know that more. Plus, he sort of codified that American look, although he took his designs and his style from guys that preceded him and from friends of his that he corresponded with. And in those days, of course, it was all just writing letters and trading. They would trade rub-offs off. We all worked off plastic stencils. I wish I had some of those here. We'd engrave a stencil for every design on the wall. You'd have like a dry point scratched into acetate, 20 thousandths acetate for the thing. You put powdered charcoal in it. You shave the skin down and put Vaseline on it, and then print that on the arm. Then you follow that from the lower corner so you wouldn't smear it. And
Now it's
tattoos,
like carbon paper, right? Is that
it wasn't, well,
What do you- I mean, what do you use?
now it's like carbon paper, yeah. But the acetate stencils were it. That's what everybody used up till we started using this other stuff in, I can't even remember, late 80s, I guess, something like that. But acetate stencils were a pain in the neck to work from because you could smear the design. You had to be really careful not putting your hand on it. But tattooers would trade designs because they would put these stencils that had a real ridge to the way they were cut into the plastic, put it under a piece of tracing paper and do a frottage, like rub over it with a pencil, and you'd have that line image. So you would do things and say, well, here's a good seller, here's a pinup I designed, and all the sailors are getting it. Jerry had sent it off to some tattooer in Australia, and he'd get designs back from it. So there was this network internationally of tattooers that were in communication with each other. So Jerry influenced a lot of people that way. And because of his interest in Asia, besides his drawing ability and his tattoo ability, he, brought into the whole modern